And the Parliament of Oz, or people are no longer taking it. The people for Parliament of Oz, who is presenting their question? And the silent song? Yes? Ashley? Who is handling the from a silent song? Boy. Boy is a very easy story. Yes? You are. We don't have anyone confident that they can handle that aspect of militia gangs and the pain they inflict on innocent people. Do you have any? Okay, let's start with those who are ready as we... Yes? Ashley? It's okay. Yeah, so let's start with the first person. You are starting.
How are you?
Silence. Let's try to be silent so that we can hear. Yeah. Together, let's read like we are. It's morning, really.
Blaming evil for evil is not a solution to any problem. Using cold because fathers of nations. Right and easy to justify this statement.
Okay, so now the topic, the introduction is retaliating on the bad things that one does to you is not a solution to the problem. Instead, it instills pain and suffering in your own life. Then, Tahir revenge on Rahma when he declines his death by slapping her, and this ends up by Tahir losing his eye. It all started when Tahir wanted to take Rahma to date and she declined, hoping Tahir will press on. Unfortunately, Tahir misinterprets her sweet note to be a soul note and wonders how a junior colleague by Miles could decline bail. He thinks of a way of revenging, and the next day, when Rahma was shedding her veil to start her work, Tahir comes and slaps her. He did so with the pretext that she was administering discipline on a female subordinate for shedding her veil in public in violation of the Libyan culture. But in reality, it was due to Rahma declining the dates. Rahma does not take it light. She hits her with the sharp letter opener, slitting her eye wide open. He later takes Rahma to court and she too loses her eye. This leads him to become more restless. He left with an emotional boy that festers inside him. Finally, he leaves Tripoli and lives alone in Benghazi.
Yeah, that's an excellent example of a paragraph. If you just master that and it's set that way, that will be okay. Paragraph 2. Paragraph 3. No, we've had introduction, then paragraph 1, right?
Yes.
So now we are paragraph 3 of the entire essay.
Then Rahma hesitantly decides to retaliate, acting on a reflex when Tahir slapped her, leading to loss of her eye. After Rahma declined to go on a date with Tahir thinks a suitable way of punishing her. He cannot allow a junior colleague by Miles to reject him. He slaps her when she finds her removing her veil. Rahma does not take it easily. She slaps him back, and this leads to the damaging of Tahir's eye. Tahir is taken to the hospital, and when he leaves after a month, he takes Rahma to court. Because of the bitterness inside and his vengeful nature, he explained that he slapped her for imitating America. It was an eye for an eye and a tooth for a tooth. Despite Rahma pleading, she too loses her eye.
it's as if it was not there. That's when they are bringing in place. So you would rather use applied.
To prison. This happens that after Walini stones Kimani wife, he feels disarrayed and decides to pay him a visit in order to find out the cause. His anger takes the best part of him. When the MP told him, Kimani does not understand why Walong wants his own wife, yet he has 3 beautiful wives. His anger continues due to unreasonable conversation of why he took his calls. He loses his composure and strikes Walong. This leads to a fight between them. Kimani is later on arrested and jailed for 6 months. He is later demoted from a full professor to a senior lecturer. Thus, it's not the best solution, but the worst solution is still in his life.
Though you can also add the aspect of him mocking him. You know, even the pain starts with that mockery, right? When he's telling him that the Greeks are known for stealing wives, and the second in the list are the British people, followed by I don't know who, the percentages vary. You know, all that is already mockery. He tells him, you can sit if you want. So before even the fight, the humiliation starts before, then finally it ends up with what you've shared. Then remember to say, he is jailed for assaulting the MP, that part.
Then, Madam, for this complaint, it was not that much clear, but I just wanted to write.
Just say what you wrote, then we can correct what we have to.
Congratulations in the summit, plans to avenge by shaking the president's hand, but later he's dragged out of the summit, making him not to attend the summit. After the president has used the Mukurahundi to kill Ziliza, it is still total pain in him. The leader who he once loved became his greatest enemy. He decided to avenge him on that day of the summit by shaking his hand. But this is a failure since the police are able to drag him and get him arrested before all is done. He then does not attend the long-awaited summit to approve the path answer.
For you to have a better background, you would rather start with the fact that he had fought in his front while Boma was in another front, but they were fighting the same war against Smith. Then the leader who takes over the government after independence is Boma. So his leader who was in his front is actually pulled out of government through the effort of Boma to weaken the opposition, through planting of cache of firearms in his home. Then once he is gone, now Melusi is the next target, because now they remove him from any leadership. And following that, they also have the formation of Kukurahundi to counter the anti-riots at the southern Zimbabwe. Then once that happens, that is when we see Kukurahundi coming up as an insurgency group to deal with the chaff. And they strangle the wife. So all the time, even when he was at the summit, you remember before he went to attack the president, he sits and looks at the picture of Ziliza and sees that Ziliza is demanding for revenge. And he promises her that he will do it. Then in the morning, you can talk about when he is called to talk. Instead of presentation, he heads towards the president to attack. And then in the process, he is arrested. So he misses out to celebrate the victory of Path Alpha, which is something he has been fighting for. Yeah.
And then that finishing part, in summary, we learn the decision we make may affect us either positively or negative. So we should choose right decisions.
Yeah. Let's appreciate her.
I'm going to take you through the HEXA number 3 Parliament Address. Start with the intention. Tolerance is the road to failure. Listening is a situation from a deeper deserved Parliament of rights and instinct to show validity of this statement. Loudness as a vice is one of the directions to successful life, as shown by characters by Adipo Disab. These characters are such as Moneybags, Arun TV, Red Strings, and Royal Pop. So, the first part, Arun TV. Through Arun TV, negligence as a theme of a vice theme is shown. His arrogant through Arun TV, negligence is shown as a character. His arrogant character.
Fine.
I want to interrupt the class.
Okay. Oh,
For biology, for
all right. Adios. We'll come later. All right, guys, so we'll proceed by discussing without the students because currently the examiners are in schools and actually dealing with them. So let's go handle it at our own level. Here we go. About 2 or 3 minutes, right? Okay. All right, so of course, as I was telling you people, Kelly Sharp, hi, there is Emo, Ken Sab, welcome, welcome. So let's proceed with this paper. I know that possibly there'll be some people waiting for this revision. So let's discuss it so that we don't just break and, load the video when it's halfway. Remember, it's supposed to be a paper taking almost 2.5 hours. So we've done already one of the questions, and imaginative composition, I'll talk about it briefly. So let's get to the optional text, and the student was handling the question from Parliament of Alls. It's a book written by Adipo Sidang, a curricular developer at KICD. So the question is, arrogance is the road to failure, using illustrations from Adipo Sidang, Parliament of Alls. Write an essay to show the validity of this statement. I know many schools in Kenya are also taking the book Parliament of Alls. All right. So, of course, the student had said that, recklessness in how we handle situations or even how we handle people might lead to a downfall, as it happens to Arum Tidi. We see Moneybags, we see the Royal Owl, and who else? We can talk about maybe the rest of the birds that really had the downfall in the book Parliament of Alls. So paragraph 2, arrogance lead to the failure of the Royal Owl. Royal Owl is the leader of, the kingdom of the trees. Now he leads with a lot of arrogance in a manner that all the other birds, apart from the owls, do not have any gain in the government. He believes that being the royal owl, he can do what he wants with the day birds. For example, he comes up with policies that are very heinous and they aim to destroy the day birds. Some of these include wanting them to pay, some of the taxes that are not very clear, and he goes about to brag about it. Remember, in the presence of, the rest of the day birds and grain birds, he indicates that leadership is in the hands of the owls, and all the time they'll be the ones to rule forever. He also says that, the symbolic aspect of power to lead is within his hands. So no other birds can grab it. Now, how does he deal with his leadership? He begins to humiliate and suppress other birds. For example, we see an illustration of how he mistreats the Osogo, and Oyundi. So Oyundi and Osogo suffer so much in the hands of royal owl because they are arrested all the time. Also, the weavers suffer and they are eliminated. In the process, these birds become disoriented, and the bitterness moves from just frustration to anger, and from anger to violence. So we actually see royal owl finally being snatched the tools of leadership by Oyundi through a strategic process that involves other birds. And finally, when he loses the power, he is humiliated before all the birds on the day Oyundi takes over leadership. So it is quite clear that his arrogance led to his failure. Paragraph 3. Rumtidi is an arrogant day bird who believes that he is part of the owls, even though he is a day bird, because him as hornbill is supposed to only be also operating with the rest of the birds during the day. However, we realize that Harumtidi gets to a level of arrogance because he is close to Moneybags. So Moneybags begins to use him, and even in the presence of Osogo and we had this other bird, he indicates that he is going to stand with the owls. He is going to make sure that he campaigns for the Moonlight Bill. Moonlight Bill, remember, it was going to suppress the day birds. It was going to make them only to Twitter and Twitter and hunt during from 6 to 6. Beyond 6, they were limited. So Hornbill forgets that he's a noisemaker, and even when he's asked, he says that rules can be broken. According to him, he has reached that level of arrogance. He believes that he's so close to leadership, and at some point he even tells the rest of the birds that for him, he will be having the frogs, mayonnaise and all that before the royal owl or the royal tree. Now, he doesn't remember that all the rest of the birds have been humiliated, including Moneybags, what we'll see in the paragraph. At the end of the day, Arumtidi is actually just used because even the leadership itself realizes that he is a kind of bird that does not have a stand. What they do is that they decide that they'll have to allow him to hit his own shadow and or reflection in the waters after they take him to the swamp until he kills himself. And indeed that happens. Just immediately after he has been spreading information about the Moonlight Bill so that it can work, we realize that that kind of propaganda does not work. Instead, it fails fully because once he has said about it and Moneybags realizes he already knows some secrets about the procurement, he is eliminated. In the morning, we find that he is dead by the water point. And remember, we had the involvement of the Moneybags and Feathered Beak and the rest of the allies. Now, let's get to Moneybags. That is our paragraph. We've dealt with already 3, so we are going to Moneybags. Moneybags is a very arrogant, leader in the kingdom of the birds. Moneybags is so arrogant that he even tries to tell the rest of the birds, including Osogo, that there is no day that the owls will lose their leadership because they were chosen by God to have it. And once they were chosen, they can do what they want with the leadership. So we see that Moneybags has indicated to the rest of the birds that they don't deserve to be leaders. And he even goes forth to say that they are going to impose tax on them, moonlight bill, that will force them to sleep by 6 in the evening and only wake up by 6. Remember, these birds are suffering. They don't have even water around their quarters, but the rule is being introduced. Apart from that, their nests will be checked all the time, and the eggs will be counted, and their young ones also. You know, in general, we realize that Osogo has learned that this is an exposure to danger. But Moneybags is trying to pretend and say that this is for security purposes, but he's going to be earning from the process because he is considering using snakes, that is python, to count the eggs. How secure can the rest of the birds be? He goes ahead even to threaten, the rest of the birds that if they don't listen to what is happening, they'll suffer, you know. Now, Moneybags even, believes that he can acquire the leadership that Royal Owl has. And we see in the dream that Royal Owl is having that Moneybags is targeting to take over the power because he now knows about the tools. And that is the plan that Oyundi uses to bring him down, because during the the celebration of Oyundi, who has joined them as part of them, Oyundi uses that process to reveal the secrets and even brings around the most hunted bird to say the truth. All right. The other character who is very arrogant and gets to fail is Feathered Beak. Feathered Beak works hand in hand with the Moneybags. They are the kings or queens of oppression and suppression. They talk anyhow to the rest of the birds and believe that they own the kingdom. So entire property that is within the kingdom is theirs. They celebrate and even drink and go to the grave of Arumtiri celebrating and calling him a successful, a failure because he beat himself, but he had been so loyal to them. So at the end of the day, we see that Feathered Beak is practicing the exact thing that Royal Owl, Moneybags, and any other character is doing. At the end of the day, this leads to failure because during the coup that Oyundi organizes with the rest of the birds, Osogo and the rest of them, automatically we see Feathered Beak also being brought down because he cannot remain the kingdom, but he's sent away and he's ashamed at what happens. So in conclusion, we realize that we are supposed to be humble in situations where we need success and treat others fairly, as it happens in the Parliament of all. The next question is from a silent song. Let me show you the question for those who will be interested. So the question in silent song is from the story Boyi by Gloria Mwaniga. Proscribed militia gangs inflict pain on the innocent, with children suffering the most. Validate this assertion with reference to Boyi by Gloria Mwaniga. Okay, so if you have read the story Boyi by Gloria Mwaniga, it revolves around the Matakwe that happened in Saboti in Kenya. So that question actually, interpretation, introduction, this is what we'll say. Formation of groups that are illegal normally causes a lot of suffering to the young ones in the society. Now, let's start with paragraph 1 of our body paragraph. Students suffer a lot in the story Boyi during the war. It is clearly told by the writer that there was no schooling for all the time that there was a fight. Zina, thank you so much for the compliment and welcome. Thank you so much, and I appreciate. Please subscribe to the channel if you have not subscribed as we continue with the discussion. Hi, everybody. I know there are so many people watching, but as I proceed with this, sometimes I may not see the chat because I'm focusing on the question or discussion, but no worries, okay? So I really appreciate your presence. You mean a world to me. So let's go ahead to the discussion. I was saying students suffer a lot in the story Boyi because of the war that Matakwei starts. It is clear that during such a time, schools were closed down and no child was allowed to go to school. So all that time, we are told that, Boye's sister sat under the Musutsu tree and could think of how they would be in school and entertaining themselves within the corridors of education. However, it happened that all that time, none of them went to school. Education is one of the key aspects that is essential currently. Therefore, the absence of students from school was a kind of a growth that was hindered by the war that had been started by Matakwei. The second body paragraph prohibited militia create soldiers, young soldiers, who prematurely venture into war fronts, and yet they do not understand the consequences of this and end up suffering. In the story Boyi, we see clearly that Boyi is pushed out by the father when he had lent the sisal rope and the panga to the surveyors. When the militia, that is the Matakwei, come to their home, his father has to give them the son. And when the son goes, he is innocent, doesn't know what they are doing. Finally, when he joins this front, when he joins this front, he is immature and trusts them fully and even begins to behave exactly like them. In that process, we see that Boyi is finally hunted down in a manner that he was flown in an aeroplane by the government, and then he was brought down. He fell from the top of an aeroplane to the ground, and that was his end. So this one, the death itself to this young man was a very painful situation. Now let's get to another paragraph. Due to militia gangs, it is clearly said, told by the author, that young people were raped, especially the girls. Innocent girls were raped, and they had to give birth to children who are colorless. So it is clearly shown to us that with militia gangs, it is possible that girls, especially girl child, will suffer. Because from the story, Gloria Mwaniga tells us that during the time Matakei were running around, they could cut people's heads, and in the process of cutting the heads, they could also rape girls and force them to cook for them. So you can imagine a situation where a young girl has been forced to be married or even give birth to another child, and they give birth to children with deformities because, you understand the trauma in the entire thing. So it is clear that the young girls suffered within this community because their sexual privacy was violated and their life humiliated at the same time. The last paragraph is that with militia gangs, young children suffer incidences of death. Clearly, Kelly Sharp is saying so sad. Yeah, that is one of the painful stories, and it was a realistic story that happened in Kenya at some point. If you ever heard about that is Matakwei in Saboti, it happened actually. It's not though it is fiction now, but it happened as a realistic thing. So the last paragraph I was saying, militia gangs lead to death of young innocent children. From the story, Gloria Maniga informs us that a lot of young children were killed. Some of them were actually cut and their heads were hung around, and it was a lot of them. Sometimes they were also displaced, so they could also be forced out of their homes, the comfort of their home. Obviously, when there is war, young children will be displaced and will be moving around to see where to settle, just like their parents will also be doing the same. In the process, you understand there is a lot of trauma that comes with this displacement because the young children don't understand even why they are moving away. And as they are moving, there are some people who are throwing gunfire at them and such a situation, so they cannot even settle in one place. And that is why we could often even see situations of psychological torture to the sister to Boyi in the story. So it clearly shows us, because she is one of the young children, because if we look at an example of children per se, we have her. Okay, let's get to the conclusion of this paragraph. We say, in a nutshell, a war or, militia gangs have no good. And it's always good that in a society, people have a peaceful stay and avoid using militia ways to deal with situations. If there are any problems they feel they should handle, there are better ways than militia. Now let's look at the story, An Artist of the Floating World. This is a question from Kazuo Ishiguro. Somebody said once on my channel that we only focus on, literature from Africa. But that is not the case. When we look at Kenya, there is a book that comes from Japan, and that book is known as An Artist of the Floating World. The only problem is, I don't know, many teachers don't want to explore that book. And it is a book that takes us back to the war time in Japan. So let's look at this question here, so that in case you want to go through this, you'll be aware of this. And this is, Noriko's marriage negotiation has been used as a means to reveal Ono's past. Justify this statement using illustrations from the novel Artist of the Floating World. Yeah, so introduction. The novel An Artist of the Floating World concentrates on the discussions of Noriko's marriage, and out of that we learn about the friends, the art, and the wrongs or corrections that Ono decides to take in his life. Okay, paragraph 1. During the first marriage negotiation, we realize that Noriko's family has a challenge in actually settling for, a reputation. We realize that the family of the pursuer, the man who is pursuing the daughter, Noriko, kind of step back as a result of the past history of Ono. The fact that Ono participated in war as an artist who was laying propaganda disorients the first, the first suitor that wanted to marry Noriko. Even though negotiations were going on and discussions, they did not seem to have any positive information about this family. Generally, in Japan, the life of the parents and the entire family determine whether people will marry someone or not. So looking at that propaganda that Ono had participated in, it is clear that his name has to be cleared. Later on, we see this man talking to Ono and indicating that some of the managers in companies have had to conduct suicide as a way to show they were sorry to Japan. So that insinuates that the reason why they dropped marriage negotiations with Ono's family is as a result of having participated in art propaganda. In the second negotiation, we realize that the family of the second suitor somehow kind of look at Noriko's family in a negative way, save for the father himself and the man who wants to marry Noriko. We realize that the author tells us that at first, when Ono was going to clear his name before the people he had humiliated, he met one of the sons from the family, and he reminded him that no one would want to hear from him. It was a clear indication that his past is haunting him. He had been there to expose the story of one of his students, and this came out in a bad shape because when the man went to the prison, he was beaten endlessly. He had even a broken rib, and while in jail, no one looked at his situation. So this clearly brings him out as someone who betrayed a student who trusted him. Through negotiations also, we learn about Ono's past, because he comes out clearly in the final setting before Noriko is married to indicate that he knows very well that he's not a good man. He did participate in propaganda during art, but what will he do about it? Should he kill himself? And we see the father-in-law to Noriko trying to pull it down and say that that was not even worth it. Ironically, the daughter is actually comfortable, because she had been thinking that failure to clear his name as a father had been leading to her failure to get married and settle in her marriage. Finally, she settles, and she believes maybe the clearing of the name was okay. During the marriage negotiation of the second suitor, we also see that Ono comes out, and the daughter confronts him and reminds him that it is you who is always selfish about yourself and does not care about us. We see during the day for preparation, Ono was not ready to get the right dressing, and the daughter was actually on his neck, reminding him that these negotiations were important and reputation was essential too in Japan. So we realize that Ono goes to an extent of visiting old friends, including his former artists, just to clear his name. He even reaches the bridges and meets the people before their death. And we realize that the Ono's past is being brought out instead of even the negotiations themselves. Ono has to sanitize his name and sometimes seek the forgiveness from these friends, including Tortoise and the past, relations, just to clear it. In some situations, Ono's friends do not even remember what he did, but he remembers it, and he has to mention it as he goes to the conservation area, pleasure district, and all that, just so as to clear his name. Yeah, so in conclusion, it is clear that Artist of the Floating World brings up Ono's life through the negotiation arrangements and to prove that a father's past was important to a child's marriage. Now we can finalize with the first question. I didn't want to start with that. The first question reads, write a composition beginning with a man approached. I knew I had seen him somewhere. Then the second one is, write a composition to illustrate the saying, when the deal is too good, think twice. So guys, if you look at this kind of question, for the first one, I normally relate to the fact that you must have a mature story. You must also understand that maybe you want to write a sad story or an exciting one. So if a story has been begun and they're saying, as the man approached, I knew I had seen him somewhere. You would either bring up someone who will save you. Maybe you are an orphan, you are stuck, you don't have a life, and then this person comes out and becomes a savior. Someone who will take you maybe from Africa to Europe. Someone who might be there to fund your education when you are stuck. Someone who might be there to define your career or pick you up from the talents. Okay, so the first thing is to think of options within which your storyline will be built. Then out of that, when you are writing, you must consider which kind of dialogues will I use. Maybe will be the dialogues a revelation? Will be the dialogues a testimony? Maybe this person also, if you are talking about negative, sad stories, is someone who killed maybe your family member. Okay? Or this is someone who violated you at some point. So we are talking of all possibilities. So once you choose whether it's a sad or happy story, you've chosen the fate of the story, make sure that you complete the statement given. Then, out of that, see if the dialogue can be there, an exciting dialogue to reveal happiness or to break monotony somewhere, or actually to bring a solution. Also, remember the setting. Do you want your story to be in urban area or the rural? So focus then once you pick it. Is it in the rural within a house or in a school or in a bank or in a courtroom? That is what you have to think of. Then away from that, limit your characters. Don't write so many characters because they tend to make your story lose that static aspect. Be descriptive as possible. Describe, don't explain. Describe. If you have a saying or two, the better. Then consider the phrasal verbs, idiomatic expressions, and all that. The same applies to the second question, where they say a deal is too good, think twice. However, do not give that is the proverb, like begin defining. No one wants your definition, but make sure that your story is showing that you fell in for a deal that looked like it was too good and you had to lose it. Possibly, somebody suggested that you are going to have a job in the Gulf and you are still in school, but you are seeing the pressure at home, there was poverty. You decided to sneak from home and disappear. But on reaching there, you are put in a brothel and you are being forced to participate in heinous acts, only for you to save yourself or salvage yourself through the hand of someone who rescued you. And once you escaped, you are really being hunted down. Somebody was even following you with a gun. However, you got to save yourself. And once you saved yourself, maybe your life became better and you become a lesson to the rest of the people. It can also be something to do with maybe your friend. You might decide to write about yourself or your friend. What is this that your friend did that maybe ended up putting them in a very compromising situation? So that is how we deal with all this. I wish you well. Adios. Let's meet later in our other videos. Of course, I have 2 more to do during the day or 3. So bye for now. Let's meet later. I appreciate people like Kelly Sharp. You are here for a very long time, since the first minute up to the last minute. Imo Kensab, you are here. I appreciate you. Zina, I appreciate you. And any other person, maybe you did not chat, but you are there because I kept seeing a lot of people chatting and watching and following what I was doing. So adios. Let's meet later.